day 3.
We had Wednesday 1. He came from one of the toughest areas of Phoenix. Both of his friends.
You got people on the defense talking about it. You better get your ass to the ball. You better get to the ball.
I just gotta say, when it comes for Dallas Cowboys, well,
It's different. Had you stayed
For sure, they would have thrown it off because
feel it from it. And I go to bed every night like, Sneaky G, man, I promise you that. We got What is up, Cowboys Nation? Mike Tag and Kelly K9 back at it. Of course, I was on a hiatus, so I couldn't be there on Thursday. So figured it's Super Bowl Sunday. Our team's not in it for the what? What are we at? 28, 29 years, Kelly? What are we looking at?
Harsh and cruel reminder, man. Every Super Bowl Sunday, you get up and you throw on your Cowboys gear. For me, I put on my jersey just like it's game day, but every Super Bowl for the last 28 years now, man. And the Cowboys are not playing.
Yeah. Well, hopefully one day that'll change soon. But before we get rolling, man, make sure you guys hit that like, subscribe, share. I know you guys are starting to roll in. We're doing a little Sunday morning, kind of a little different, but there's some, maybe talk some Super Bowl pregame. I don't know if we got any gamblers out there. I put a bet on the game. We'll get into that. And then there's a lot of Cowboys talk going on, a lot of former players, a lot of current players. This whole Super Bowl week, I don't know about you guys in the audience or you, Kelly, I've been a little numb. This year has still been kind of hard, getting over everything. So I've been a little numb. So I haven't really watched as much as I usually do, but I've started picking it up the last few days. And some of it was, got me angry. I tweeted a video on with Michael Irvin and Emmitt Smith, what he had to say. Then you heard with Tank. And so we'll get into all that stuff. But just just a lot of stuff going on in Cowboys land, as always, as the world turns.
Yeah, there is. There's been some some good stuff. There's been some bad stuff. I know me and Greg kind of got into the whole DeMarcus Lawrence thing. I played the audio clip of what DeMarcus Lawrence said when he went on First Take, which garnered from us, at least from me and Greg, a pretty just disgusted feeling from myself, from Greg, and I feel like from most of Cowboys Nation. And so those comments really fired me up, man. And whether he was, Chad about, DeMarcus Lawrence, he's not a soft guy. I said, okay, I'm not saying I'm saying that's a soft response. And it is. That response was soft. And what my main takeaway from that is like, look, if that really was the way that you felt, or maybe that wasn't the way you felt and you felt some other way, but you wanted to say that just to kind of, mask some, don't say anything, man. Say no comment. I mean, I'd rather you say no comment. I don't have a comment for that. But, somebody was saying, well, maybe he was trying to cover up for the fact that they lost faith in DQ. DQ ain't a part of the Cowboys team no more than say it. He's not, Dan Quinn's thrown a few shots the Cowboys' way since he took over the Commanders, job. He's thrown, they're subtle, but he's thrown jabs there the Cowboys' way with some of the things that he said. Don't be afraid to throw Dan Quinn under the bus if that's the case. I'd rather you throw Dan Quinn under the bus than come out here with that weak-ass stuff that you're talking about. We were burnt out. Like, I don't want to hear that. No fan wants to be one of their star players.
No, and I'll say this. I didn't hear the whole quote, so I wish I would have, like, the whole video to see the context of what it was in. But just real quick, hey, good morning to everyone who's hopped in the morning. I know it's kind of like that morning go, so appreciate you guys hanging out with us in the chat, and definitely give your opinions on this. But with Tank, if he said what I believe he said and what you did say, it really surprised me, really disappointed me. When you're talking about tired, I wanted to find the video with one of my favorite movies. As you guys know, I love movies. So it's the football movie with Denzel Washington. And he said, we're going to do up downs until Blue is no longer tired or thirsty. And it just made me think that these guys aren't in condition to be able to play. And so I don't know what he was talking about. Then I heard people say it was a mental fatigue. which that doesn't sit well with me either. So the whole thing was bad. I just wish a lot of Cowboys, the Super Bowl week might have just kept their mouths shut, might have just kind of, laid low. Like really, Cowboys Nation has laid low. And this is a quote. I don't know if you saw this quote from Micah Parsons. This one, I want to get your feeling, then I'll give you mine. And you guys in the chat as well. We need to have way more accountability. I just think we let things slide too often because we know we're good. That's all about me. I want to change the culture. I want to change the identity of what the Cowboys are. Cut the extra stuff out. I just want people to lock in for 22 weeks. 7 months can change your life, and I'm ready. So what's your initial reaction?
My initial reaction on that is that I better not see you on your fucking podcast. Excuse me. Damn it, threw out that bomb. But that's immediately what I think. I better not see you on the podcast then, because if that's the case, leaders lead by example. If you're talking about locked in, focus on football, football's the only thing, I don't want to see the podcast. And I'm not sitting here saying that I think the podcast is I get it. Players in the NFL nowadays, it's a different day and age. They have that, right? But there are people who look at that as it being a distraction. I look at that as it's an extra activity. It's an extracurricular activity that is not it's not you being locked in. If I tell you I'm going to lock in 100% on my job, I say, you know what, for the next 22 weeks, I'm locked in. I'm focused on becoming the best manager that I can be at my position. Then that means everything that doesn't have anything to do with that is not going to be a focus. And that would mean his podcast. That would mean going and, and having any type of interviews like, look, I'll have my podcast after we win a Super Bowl. Then I'm coming out here to do that. So my first reaction is, all right, man, if that's what you're going to do, I want to see you lead by example. And the first thing for me would be, don't have the podcast. Let's cut that out and let's have you be laser focused in. But if that's what he's going to do, hats off to him, man. But honestly, what stopped you from doing that this year? You know what I mean? I feel like you should have already been doing it.
That's the part that's frustrating. And 808 Cowboys 77, 100%. Micah is the main one contributing to the country club Cowboys culture. And I say that, with respect to Micah, I think he's obviously a phenomenal player. The talent is undeniable. I mean, we've had former players on, Hall of Famers on, all of them have said it. So there's no doubting it. But the thing I've always said with the Cowboys and what's frustrating is the culture. And the players have a chance to be accountable and to change that themselves. The team of the 90s, I mean, believe me, they didn't have the internet. We didn't have internet much. We didn't have social media much, but that team was wild. I mean, James Washington talked about it. Moose Johnson talked about it. But when it came game day and when it came practice time, it came training camp, though all that other stuff went to the side. And they were focused on winning and competing and accountability to each other. And they like James Washington said, they were more worried about their own attacking them for missing a tackle, not making a play, than the coaches. And I think for Micah Parsons to say that, the podcast was the first thing that came in. And I get it. Every guy does a podcast. But when you're on the Cowboys, it's a little bit different because the spotlight is on there. Everyone's talking about it. But he could have been changing that years ago. He's a leader on this team, and he's the one who needs to start holding his teammates accountable and those other leaders on the team. A guy like Tank, who, believe me, I love Tank to death, but when I'm hearing him talking about fatigue and tired, man, that just doesn't sit well with me at all. I mean, like you said, say nothing at all. You're trying to protect someone or whatever. But you see all these guys coming out saying stuff now. Now, Stephon Gilmore, 1-year guy, he had a total flip. He said, no excuses. I don't want to hear tired. I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear that. We've got to be better. We didn't do our job. But what is Stephon Gilmore? He's a champion. He's an NFL Defensive Player of the Year. He's all those things that you want in your culture. And that's what I keep saying is we've got to get more of that on this team. And then you see Mike Parsons, TJ Watt, not ranking him in his top 5, kind of dogging him a little bit because he was kind of disappointed he didn't win Defensive Player of the Year when I think he's won it a couple times or whatever. But that's one other thing. Why do you need – I mean, let's just be real and call it for what it is. And I know Micah Parsons, phenomenal win rate, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, how you going to dog TJ Watt, man? That just don't make no sense.
Yeah, and I, I saw the comment by the Stars We Are, and I think that's actually I wanted to just kind of focus on that for just a quick second. I think that's he makes they make a good point there about that it's a little bit of a learning curve for Micah because he's so young that he's obviously we expect him to step into that role and be a leader, but with him being at the age that he's young, he's 20, 23, 24 years old. Actually, I think he's 20. I think he's a little bit older than that, but he's young in his 20s. And you think about back to your time, and a lot of times we expect more from these athletes than what we would expect from ourselves at that age because they're playing at this high level. But they're also we have to still take into effect that they are still young. There is still things that they don't. They come in thinking they know everything, but there still is a little bit of a learning curve. So I think maybe that we could give Micah a little bit of grace when it comes to that, just because of the fact that maybe he is seeing now a little bit how some of these actions that he does off the field maybe affect the optics of what it takes to build a championship roster, to be a leader, to have accountability, to be locked in. So if that's the case, and that's, he's saying, hey, going forward, I'm the guy that's going to set the standard, then you know what? I'm all for that. I mean, as you can see, I'm rocking the number 11. I've got the number 11 behind me. I'm a big Parsons fan, but I do believe that things need to change within the Dallas Cowboys. And I think on the defensive side, it starts with him. If you want to be that player that's looked at as a transcendent guy, I think I absolutely, without doubt, think that he's our best pass rusher on this team. And it's not even close. And I think he's one of the best pass rushers in the league over the last 3 years with what he's done coming to the league. But I think in the area that he can get better is being a leader and being that Michael Jordan type that makes those around you better, because the best always made those around you better. Troy Aikman made those around him better. Michael Irvin made those around him better. Emmitt Smith made those around him better. They held their people. You posted that video the other day where Michael and them were talking, Michael and Emmitt, and the relationship they had and how they were able to hold each other accountable even during injury. Like, man, we need you out there. Like, you can't be tapping the helmet and coming out the game in one of the biggest moments. Like, you need to play through that. Like, that's what I want from this team. These dudes to have that mentality, to hold each other to that higher standard, to be accountable. And because I think that's what it takes to get a team to where you're playing on Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And again, I get it. They're young and it's fine. But then I can't give a pass to, Tank he's a veteran. He's been around a long time. I love Tank. He's a veteran. Dak Prescott, veteran. No excuses on those. They're grown men. They need to bring Micah Parsons in and show him the way if need be, or whatever it is that they need to do. But yeah, Micah Parsons, we go as far as Micah Parsons does on defense, and that was evident, right? He didn't have a big game in the Packers and didn't go well. The one other interesting thing, we have a question, so I want to make this interactive with the chat as well. Real quick, questions, your thoughts on Dan Quinn being a new head coach of the Washington Commanders. My first thing, and then obviously Kelly get respond is, I don't really, no worries. How's that? No worries. I have no fear for him going over there. They're not a great organization. I think, I hate to say this, and because I probably gave him a lot of flowers through the years. I think he was a primary reason for what happened against Green Bay. And we'll get into that because there was another story that kind of went through with Micah Parsons. But what's your thought with Quinn? Is there any concerns?
With Quinn, absolutely none. I like I said, when he left, I said, you know what? Thanks for what you did in Dallas, but I'm not really worried about Dan Quinn at all. And, you see the former coaches that with him, what they do to his defenses, unfortunately, a little bit predictable. And not just, one of the questions they asked, because Lawrence was about the adjustments. And he said, well, I thought we made our adjustments, but, they didn't, there wasn't really any adjustments made in the second half of the Green Bay game. They played out the same tired ass thing that they had been doing in the first. They literally got driven down right after halftime. They got right down the field. Green Bay went right down the field and scored again. So it's like, with Quinn, I think he is a defensive coordinator that can improve a defense because he's done that. Yeah. He's proven that he can get a defense to play good. As a head coach, I'm not buying in on the Dan Quinn thing. And I think that he unfortunately is put into a spot where he's looked at to develop and breed a culture there and do a culture. They need a whole culture change in Washington. I don't think he's the guy to do it. And they don't have a quarterback. So if the Commanders decide to, my biggest point was if the Commanders decide that they want to trade up and try to get a quarterback, or they want to get the quarterback in the future, you really want a defensive-minded coach to try to develop your young offensive, rookie quarterback. I don't think Dan Quinn's the guy to do that, and I don't think they have that guy on their roster as an offensive coordinator. So
now, who'd they get?
I think he's in a pretty poor position.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if they got Kingsbury, that would go a long way towards
I'm trying to remember. Did they get Cliff Kingsbury?
I don't know if they did. I don't know if they got him or not. Now, Kingsbury, he is a guy that can develop quarterbacks. I mean, he was one of the guys that in college coached Baker Mayfield, who obviously is still an NFL player. He's not one of the greatest NFL, but in college he was a Heisman guy. They had,
they got Kingsbury.
Yeah, okay. So then I think Kingsbury is a good young offensive mind. I think he never should have been a head coach in Arizona. I'm a Texas Tech guy. He couldn't win in college as a head coach, so they made him a head coach at Arizona. I thought, what the hell are these guys doing? But offensive coordinator mind, he's pretty good, man. But still, I don't know that Dan Quinn is a guy that I'm ever going to worry about. I just as a head coach, I just don't think he's. Don't think he's
we got another question. We got another question along the defensive side. Then I want to get into the Parsons thing a little bit more because he was busy on his podcast. With Zimmer being known as a hard ass, what do you think? Who do you think thrives in that environment? Who do you think it's going to break? I honestly, I'll give you a few players. I think that thrive in it. I think Micah Parsons is gonna thrive in that, and I think that's kind of what he needs. I think Diggs, I think Bland, I think some of the younger guys are going to thrive in it. The ones that it could break, I don't think they're going to be on the team, so I don't think it's going to matter. I think I think it's going to break some. There's going to be some guys that are probably going to take an exit, but I think you're going to need that. And so I don't know. Are there any key guys off the top of your head on the defensive side that you think would do well in it, or do you think any that is just they're not going to be able to handle what Zimmer brings?
I think I agree with you. I think Parsons is going to be the biggest one that I think that we could see a change from. If Parsons is truly going to take that locked in mentality, I think Zimmer would absolutely embrace that. And I think Zimmer would be a great guy to get him for that. So now, as far as like who it's going to break,
Sam Williams was one. That's an interesting one.
Sam Williams, I could see that possibly for sure. I mean, he was a guy that was going to have a post game party. After, remember that they were advertising for a post game victory party. He was one of those guys that was doing that, and I'm sitting there going, dude, what are you doing, man? You're barely even right now a role player on this defense. You're better at special teams than you are on this defense. You're gonna have a post game party and advertise that before the game's even played. Are you stupid? So yeah, maybe he's one of those guys that gets broke. Now, one of the things that I would say that I was, about the defense as we get to talking about defensive players and, guys stepping up stuff. I know we've talked about the fact that we need, linebackers on this team, but one of the things, and I would have never really thought this, and DeMarcus Lawrence has always been a guy that's great at run stopping, right? But the sack numbers for DeMarcus Lawrence just have not been there over the year, and that's not something that I can ignore. I think that it is not out of the realm of possibility that the Cowboys need to get another pass rusher in this defense, a guy that can make an impact on the other side of Micah Parsons, because the thing is, stopping the run is all good with DeMarcus Lawrence. It's all good. We need another war daddy, though, on the other side that can get to the quarterback when Micah Parsons is getting double and triple team, because you've seen guys like Osa step up and be able to get in there. You've seen some of the guys in the interior be able to do it. But DeMarcus Lawrence, I don't feel really is doing us the best. The run stopping is fine, but you can get a guy that can stop the run and get after the quarterback. And I think we need a guy like that in this defense with Mike Zimmer. We need a guy coming off the other side. So I've been looking at, a lot of people talking about linebacker in the draft. I wouldn't count us out going after a pass rusher in the first round, to be honest with you, because I think that's maybe one of the other missing pieces to this defense is a guy coming off the other side, because when Parsons is eating up all those offensive linemen, it's got to be somebody coming around the other side, man, coming in hot to put pressure on that quarterback.
No, you're right. And I think, Camber with Clark and Donovan Wilson have issues being undisciplined along with Williams. So, I mean, there's going to be some shakeup. There's going to be anyone who's remembers the Cowboys with Mike Zimmer. Again, he's not going to, no one did a backflip and no one's, busting through walls and doors doing hype videos for Mike Zimmer. But what he's going to bring, he's going to bring the accountability and he's going to bring some discipline. This defense, will, and I don't think they're going to all of a sudden, it's not going to look like Nolan coming in there and collapse. I'll be shocked if it did. I'd look like a fool. I think Zimmer's going to bring it. The one thing that was interesting, if you listen to Micah Parsons' podcast, and last night couldn't sleep, so I started catching up on some of it. And he had Jordan Love in his podcast, and they were talking about the game and how did you guys plan to beat us in the playoffs? And he basically it was pretty simple and it was kind of, arrogant, but he had the right to be, but it was run the ball. You're looking at your linebackers. He didn't even mention any linebackers of guy name. He kind of smirked when he talked about our linebackers, said, I think you guys have a cornerback playing linebacker or safety or someone like that. So they knew exactly what to do against us. And the blueprint was there and they did it. I think we had hoped, and it's what I talked about earlier. I think we're all a little taken aback by our defense, and our defense always looked better when our offense, jumped out to a big lead or a good lead, and that got the defense to pin their ears back and rush the passer. And I think that's what Quinn was doing well, but making adjustments and doing different things. I think that's where the problem was with Quinn, and it was evident in the Green Bay game because, like they said, we're just going to chip Parsons. We're going to get that. You're really the only one we're going to worry about. And then you're dropping into coverage, which wasn't normal. I mean, it was a whole big thing. It just showed it. And I don't think you're going to see that with Zimmer, but the discipline on this team, Sam Williams is one that it's either like, share or get off the pot, for lack of a better word, because I mean, I had him as my breakout player of the year, 10 sacks. And that one, I don't even think he got a sack, or maybe he got one. But Tank Lawrence is one that, to your point, is if Parsons getting double and triple team, there's got to be someone on the side that's getting a lot of sacks. People forget in the team of the 90s, Charles Haley, I don't know if he ever led the team in sacks. Who led the team in sacks 9 times out of 10 was Tony Tolbert. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Because I mean, you got to have that. You got to have that guy on the other end, man. And you look at some of these teams that have they have these pass rushers. It's never a bad thing to have multiple pass rushers. And again, it's not a knock on the things that Tank Lawrence, Tank has done for this team, because he's been a great run stopper and he's a guy that, he gets pressures and stuff, but we need more than pressures off the other side when Michael Parsons is eating up 2 offensive linemen, sometimes 3. If he's taking on all that on one side, there is no reason that the guy on the other side getting one-on-one coverage shouldn't be beating somebody. You look at that Denver Broncos team that won the Super Bowl a few years back when DeMarcus Ware went to the Broncos. That was their thing. They wanted a guy to come to be on the other side of Von Miller that could eat up, to take the single teams on and get sacks. And that's what he did for that defense. DeMarcus Ware went over there and he was a guy that contributed instantly and he put that defense over the top. So I'd love to see us having another pass rusher opposite Michael Parsons too. Because as much as I love DeMarcus Lawrence, I just, one, he's getting a little bit long in the tooth. And 2, I need a guy who's going to get me more in terms of getting to the quarterback on the other side, off that other edge. And I just think we need a presence there, whether that's free agency or whether we go out and draft a kid that can come in there and start getting that type of pressure. I thought Sam Williams was going to be the guy to do that, to be honest with you, because after his rookie season, we thought, hey, man, this guy, he got to the quarterback with consistency. Then for whatever reason, he got in the doghouse, kind of fell off, didn't get a whole lot of opportunities this year. And when he did, it didn't look the greatest. It looked like he kind of carved out his niche in special teams, but we're not going to pay a defensive end big money to be a special teams guy.
No.
So, obviously the Cowboys need to add something there, but I think this Cowboys defense is only a few key pieces away. I think that the defense is really good, but I think you only need to add a few pieces. And I think Zimmer can absolutely get this defense playing. I think this is a top 5 defense again this next year. But I think this year we have the chance to be a legit top 5 defense, not a top 5 defense that is kind of masked in beating up on bad teams and collapses and gives up 32 points a game when they play teams with winning records, because that's what this defense did. And in my opinion, when people say this is a top 5 defense you guys had last year, no, it was not a top 5 defense. In my opinion, the defense was fraudulent. And when they went up against the better teams, they got exposed and had no answer. So I think Mike Zimmer can come in and fix that, because there is talent on this defense.
Yeah. What's up, Frank, in Germany? Where I see we did a morning show for him. We did that for you, Frank, because I know you always tell me it's too late in Germany when we're live, so we want to make sure we take care of it.
I hope he's got his big German mug full of beer this morning.
Yeah, definitely. But I think sometimes fresh faces, you get Zimmer in here. I think it could juice up some of these guys. I think, he might be able to get a little bit more out of them than maybe Quinn got on some guys. And maybe there's going to be some that you're going to have the reverse effect. I mean, Zimmer is not what I would call – the players love playing for him. If you listen to Roy Williams, you listen to Ware, you listen to, a lot of these guys, they enjoyed playing with him. He was just that fiery guy. But you may get some that, hey, that's going to be their cup of tea, and they'll get moving on. But I think other guys might thrive. Some people need that discipline. It's something that Michael Irvin, you're talking about Michael Irvin and Emmett, and we talked, I did, kind of play a clip from their interview. Very good interview that they had, with Rich Eisen and kind of, talking about the Cowboys. And the first thing I see is I get this feeling, the former Cowboys, when you listen to James Washington, you listen to all the former Cowboys guys we have had on. And if you guys are new to the channel, need to go back and check some of that out. Also, make sure you subscribe, because we got some more coming in. But they always just seem to care a little bit more about the Cowboys than the Cowboys, current players. They have a sense of pride, with the star in their helmet. There's a sense of pride of what they built. And it's always like, Michael Irvin, he said it at Miami. He said it, one of my favorite clips, if you ever just YouTube Michael Irvin, Miami Hurricane pregame speech he gave to the guys. And he always said it was a responsibility of the players of today. If you got handed something, right, and these guys handed them championships, it was their responsibility to give them something back. They don't give you something, you give them back nothing. I can't say it any better than Michael Irvin, so you got to go watch the video. But it gives me chills thinking about it, because he's so right in the mindset of some of these former players, the current players, is they cared about the 70s and early 80s, but they wanted to create their own path. They wanted to create their own dynasty. They wanted to create their own, relationship, everything that went with it. And when you see Michael Irvin and Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman and Dion was on, he had all these guys. It's such a brotherhood, and you just still see the passion and the care that they have. And it's like I said, they could pick up a phone and 30 years later and talk, and they'll be right there for each other. And you see what it's done. And we've talked about it for some of your lower tier players that weren't the stars, what it's done for them in their career. And it's like, you got to want that. And and I think the players do, but sometimes it just kind of makes you wonder, because the glam, if Tank is talking about fatigue and mental fatigue, and Parsons is talking about this year is going to be different, I'm going to be all in. Well, I mean, we heard that last year. I mean, we lost in the playoffs against the 49ers, and the whole big thing was we're going to get them back. And then we had our opportunity and just got dog walked in the place, and that didn't look good. And then it was, all right, we're going to get our opportunity now. You got the number 2 seed. Everything looks good. And for you to come out and say that you were tired or weren't prepared or all the words that come out, man, it's hard for the fans to accept. And I think that's why you said it and I said it. It's like, we've got to see something, because we've been down this road. Stephen A. Smith was on Parsons' show, and he just kind of laughs at the Cowboy fans. Here we go again. And he said it, and they're both kind of joking about it. And Parsons did defend it a little bit, but it's like, we've got to do something. And it's always going to be said about the Cowboys until they do something. And they've got to change They got to change, but I think they need to listen to these former players. Maybe they need to have them in the locker room a little bit more. I don't know. What do you think?
I love the mentality of the players from the 90s. I think that they know what it takes. They got it. They recognize it. They see it. They see when they don't see it. Right? They know when they look at this team that they don't see it. I mean, was it when we talked with was it James Washington that we asked, and he said he knew we were going to lose to Green Bay because he said he just saw something in this team that that this team just wasn't it. He saw it. I mean, so those players that have been a part of those championship rosters, they recognize a championship roster when they see it. And we haven't had that yet. And I think part of that is the mentality, and part of that is the culture. It's all of it is one. And it's the fact of 53 individuals recognizing that they all need locked in. And if there's one person on the team not locked in, then it's up to the 52 others to get that other person locked in. Or if there's 5 guys not locked in, it's up to the rest to make sure, hey, we're getting these dudes locked. Look, you're not locked in, then there's the door. Ask for a trade or get your ass out the way, because anybody that's not locked in, you ain't coming along for the ride. This is about 53 individuals coming together for one common goal, and they have to buy into that. They really have to buy into that. And whether that's bringing in these players like an Emmett, Emmett Smith had talked about, what they said, why did they win? Because he's not the GM. I thought that was interesting. Like, it makes, obviously we all know that Jerry's never given up the GM role. So that's a pipe dream to wish that. But if you're Jerry, maybe you can bring in some guys from these 90s championships teams to start letting these guys know what it took to have that championship mentality, because I do think that there's something to be learned from these guys. I mean, if you want to be the best at what you do, then you look to the guys that have already done it. You look to the guys that have been to the top of the mountain, and you want to pull knowledge from them, and you want to understand from them what it took along their journey, right? Because I mean, I think the best at their craft, whatever it be, whether it be you in sales or whether it be somebody out there on the field of play, you want to learn from the best, and you want to know, hey, what did it take for you to be the best? Because I want to be where you were at, or I want to be better than where you were at. So you want to take from that, and I think that it would absolutely be a plus for these players to listen, because I really don't think that they understand, and I don't think they appreciate the history that this Cowboys franchise, that, what it means to wear that star on your helmet, what it really means to wear that star on your helmet, and that it is a privilege. It's a privilege to wear that. It's not a right. Just because you're signed to the team, you're drafted by the team, you're picked up, it is a privilege. And so I think we need to get more of that mentality in there. And I just, before I forget and we jump on to something else, I've seen a couple of people mention in the chat about Gilmore and whether I'd love to have Gilmore back on the team, and I think he wants to be back on the team. I saw a quote from him the other day that said, I absolutely want to come back to this team. He said, and this is what I like from him, because I think he's one of the guys that we need for culture. I think he understands it. Like you said, he's a champion. He said, he goes, we have the pieces to be something special, and I want to be a part of that. And when you think about bringing back a secondary of Deron Bland, Stephon Gilmore, and a healthy Trayvon Diggs, I think that right there is the nucleus for a great secondary. And I'm talking about great secondary. So absolutely want Gilmore back on this team. I think he can contribute to what it takes to be a championship caliber team and roster.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, I would bring Gilmore back. Is he under contract or is he free? I don't even guess I didn't do my homework.
He is not under contract. I believe it was just a 1-year deal, but he wants to come back. And he did say that he goes, we can't really talk about it right now. He said, but that's the thought process. And when March comes around, we're gonna revisit. So the fact that he wants to be back in the building is automatically, in my opinion, I think they bring him back. I don't see why they wouldn't.
I would. I think you can never have enough champions in the locker room, guys, that can help with that culture. And that's what I think they need to find. It's not, you don't need to go out and get the, high price free agents, but I think you can be strategic in what you do. Go get, some champions, especially in linebacker. I mean, the linebackers, it's like, you got to blow that thing up. I mean, and I don't want to say you start over, but you really only have one linebacker. You got one linebacker. And I mean, LVE is, I think he's probably done, but they've got to do something at linebacker. And to your point, you can get some of that in the draft. You don't need to do high draft pick.
Right.
You can, but you can get it in free agency with, there's a couple guys in Tampa. You got Queen and the Ravens. There's some guys that you can get, but you got to bring in some nasty. And those guys I mentioned, they're nasty. They're blue collar. We've got too much glam sometimes, and I think we need some dogs. And I just don't think we have enough dogs, especially on the defensive side. So that's something you see on the offensive side. And we're going to get into this, guys, so much more as a season goes on. But I mean, you're looking at this roster. I mean, the glam, the thing that sticks out probably more than anything is running back for me. Wide receiver, do you bring Cooks back or do you try and get a different type of receiver? I mean, what's your, obviously maybe some tinkering, something with the offensive line, but what are you seeing is a couple things, if any, that we need on offense?
So I actually we looked this up on the show on Thursday because I thought Cooks is a free agent too. He's actually signed through this season, so he'll be back. He's signed through 2024. So Cooks will be back. I was thinking he was a free agent for some reason.
I didn't know if they were going to cut him. I didn't know if they'd cut him because I think it was kind of
I think they'll keep him on because I thought he was a good contributor. I thought he was a good piece for Dak Prescott coming down the stretch. I thought he played solid, and when they gave him opportunities and they gave him the ball, I thought he was a solid contributor towards this offense. Yeah. I would absolutely keep Cooks and 100% roll with that. You're not investing too much money in your number 2 wide receiver with Cooks and that contract they got. So I think it's very affordable. I think what we absolutely need to do is send Michael Gallup right on out the door. Yeah. We need to address that number 3 wide receiver, and whether that's via the draft or whether that's in free agency, I'm not really sure where they would go there. I would think.
Are you not sold on Tolbert? You don't think he can fill that void?
I thought he made some nice plays down the stretch last season. I did. I really
got a lot of opportunities, right?
Yeah. But he didn't get a lot of opportunities. But my whole thing is I don't want to bank on Tolbert stepping in and automatically being the guy. So I think you need to draft a guy and you need to make that a competition, obviously, in training camp. Give Tolbert his reps with the ones, but I don't know that 100% that I'm going to put all my stock in, hey, Tolbert can come in and be the guy, be the number 3. Because that, again, when we talk about culture and mentality, make the guy earn it, right? Don't just be like, all right, we're going to get rid of Gallup, which means Tolbert, you're the next man up. You're the 3rd guy. No, make that guy earn it. Whether it's you draft another guy or you get a guy in free agency, you bring him in, you say, you know what, you guys are going to compete for this number 3 spot. Because I think that we got some good pieces, and I hope that they continue to. I hope he stays on, and that they continue to work and develop Turpin, because Turpin's was a pretty nice piece when they used him and threw some plays his way. He was a guy that could stretch the field, and we saw could get behind the defense. I like what he brings to the table. Is he going to be your number 3? I don't think so, but can he be a contributing piece? One of your depth guys. I do think so. I'm
going to have to cut you for a second, and I got to agree with my girl Cam. She said, see you, Turpin. What I would do, Cowboys have to send a message. I mean, these coaches, whether it's Zimmer coming in, Jerry, Mike, I mean, they've got to send a message. And it may be I would send Turpin packing, and I would cut Williams. I'd cut both of them. For what the crap with the I know it's a little.
I forgot about that. I forgot that he was one of the guys along with Sam Williams. I did forget.
But I think they've got to send some. I mean, it's what Jimmy Johnson used to do. It's what Bill Belichick's done. It's what Parcells has done. I mean, Parcells rode Larry Allen. I mean, rode him and just dogged him all training camp and this and that. And you're talking about a Hall of Famer. I'm saying that to change the culture, you gotta change some of the pieces, right? I don't want to use any terminal illness or anything like that, but when you've got some of that, it's infectious to the rest of the team. And I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying you got to find the one, whoever it is. There's got to be some. There's got to be some in here because this team has underachieved. And James Washington, Moose Johnston, people have been on our show, especially the guys in the 90s. It floored me when they say this. This team is more talented than the teams we had in the 90s. And it shocks me that they'd say that, but they're being honest with what's here. And you look at the Pro Bowlers, you look at the All Pros, you look at everything that comes with it. But there's some issues in the locker room, and they need to weed it out, and they need to cut them and send a message to the other ones that the shit is going to stop. And if you
Yeah.
guys ain't with the program and about winning and getting this thing done, then you're gone. But it starts with Jerry, and that's the problem. Jerry's got to set the tone. If he's going to be the GM and he's the owner and he's going to do this and he's all serious about, all in and all that, he's got to set the tone. I don't know if he will, but that's what I think needs to be done.
I think and I agree that a tone does have to be set. Now, I would like the tone to be Mike McCarthy being the guy that actually sets that tone, right? Because I think that he should be the guy that. I mean, if you're Jerry Jones and you want a culture to be bred, I think you allow your head coach to be the person that breeds that culture, because I think it is a hand in hand with your GM and your head coach, because I think that's what makes, the Niners, that's what's made them great, and granted, they haven't been able to get over that hump and win the Super Bowl. But if I'm being realistic and I look to see which franchise right now I would rather be where the Niners are at than where we're at. We say it all the time. Hey, you know what? I don't. It's participation trophies if you don't win it all. But the point is, the Niners are a team that is perennially almost every year they're competing for a Super Bowl, to get to and win a Super Bowl, and they're getting there. And they're getting to NFC championship games, and they're getting to the Super Bowl, and they're on the cusp of that. We're talking about getting out of the divisional round of the playoffs, right? We're not the same. We're not, when it comes to their franchise, we're not the same. But you look at Lynch and Shanahan, they work hand in hand in developing that culture. Like, they give themselves, he gives Shanahan hey, get your coaches in here. These are your guys. Get your players in here. I'm going to let you build this culture, and I'm going to give you, as the GM, I'm going to be the guy that gives you the resources to do that. You want to go out and get a Hargraves in the offseason? Done. You want to go out and get bring in a guy that, Randy Gregory is a role player guy? Done. You want to, whatever pieces you need. You want a CMC? We need a better running back? Done. That's what we need. We need, we don't really have that at this point right now. But if Jerry Jones is talking about going all in, maybe this is one of those deals where he's like, all right, Mike, you're on a 1-year prove-it deal, so fall on your sword, do what you want. I'm letting you got full control, man. You go out and draft the guys you need. You tell me who you need in free agency, and I'm bringing them in. Zimmer should be at that table too, asking Zimmer, what guys do you need on this defense to make this thing change, to make this thing work? What kind of guys do you need? And Zimmer should be a part of that conversation, and let these coaches be the ones that develop this culture and bring it all together and put it all together, because that's what you hired them for. You hired them to win you a Super Bowl. So let them do their jobs, and you just be there, Jerry, to, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need to make this dinner? I'm gonna go out and buy the groceries for you. So I'd love to see that this offseason, and I hope to see it during free agency. When free agency starts, I hope we are immediately going to work. Soon as that clock hits midnight and we can start talking free agents, I hope Dallas is super aggressive.
Yeah, they need to be. And I'd say this, Frank, with McCarthy, I don't necessarily agree with the statement. He doesn't set the tone. He's too quiet, no temper. I don't believe that. I've seen him in Green Bay. You got to remember, he was the one that sent Brett Favre on his way. He's like, enough of the back and forth, and they went with Rodgers. And I mean, you got to remember, people forget. I mean, Brett Favre was the sun rose and set with Brett Favre. They didn't know who this Aaron Rodgers guy was. I mean, it was Brett Favre. And I think Mike McCarthy can be that tone setter. The problem is who's your boss. When the player, I've said it a million times, when the players can jump the coach and go right to the GM, who, oh, by the way, is the owner, you just cut their legs from under them. It's the same thing with, that's why Jimmy Johnson worked so well. Notice when it started to fall is when Jerry started getting a little too involved. When the buck stopped, and you heard it with Emmett, you heard it with Michael Irvin, the buck stopped with Jimmy Johnson. They lost the game against Washington, and they were on the plane, and he told every single one, someone says something, I'm going to cut you. And they all just sat there quiet. I mean, he was a tone setter. He did not he wanted to make losing uncomfortable, make losing more uncomfortable than winning is comfortable. And again, that it has to be with Jerry, because he's put himself in that position. Jimmy Johnson was basically the GM. He was the coach. He was everything. And Jerry has meddled in, and it doesn't do the coaches any favors. That's why you have that. To me, that's why you haven't. That's the culture issue that we talk about. They're the accountability that we talk about. It all starts with Jerry, and we love him. I love Jerry as the owner. He comes out, he says some funny stuff, he tell a story. Kelly does a perfect, Jerry. So we get to hear it from him all the time. So I know Kelly loves him, but you got to be real into it. And he's the problem. We all see it. We all know it. He's going to have to be the one to change the most if he wants to get to that Super Bowl. And that's just the reality. Because I say they got to win in spite of him. So either got to win in spite of him, or he needs to start either backing off or being a heavy hand and making sure that giving the coaches the authority to do what they got to do. Like you said, Kelly, get the guys that you need.
Yeah, well, and my whole thing was if what I'd love to see is when they talk about going all in, and Micah talks about being locked in, and I'm gonna be locked in for 22 weeks. What I'd like to be is get Jerry to be on that same page and have all these dudes like Jerry. Don't go on your show every week. Like, we don't need you on your show. We don't need you going and doing a segment on 105.3 The Fan. Like, sorry. But
let
we're
you
not
do
doing
it.
that.
Let Swaggy do it. You just fill in for him.
I'll go on there and give you. I'll go on there. I'll take his place. I can do that. That I'm not provide it. But I mean, seriously, when you talk about the outside distractions and this or that, or how many times has Jerry said some shit that that we're sitting there and midweek the media is talking about something Jerry said on his radio show. You know what I mean? Or they're asking players, hey, Jerry said on his show, whatever. They're asking Mike McCarthy these questions. They're asking get rid of everything that is a distraction. And sometimes Jerry talking about his team, I get it. It's his team. He can do whatever the hell he wants. But sometimes Jerry talking is a distraction because he contributes to that country club mentality with some of the things that he says. Like we talked about it, about the offseason thing when Sam Williams gets, he's driving, 80 miles an hour, and the previous time he was 120, and Jerry's like, well, he was 50 miles an hour slower this time around. No, like, shut up. Don't say that. What you should say is it's inexcusable that this dude has not only been caught once, but now twice. We may have to sit down with this young man and redefine his role on this team. We are very upset with him right now, and he should know better. Like, those kind of comments. That's not holding your guys accountable by making a joke about it. It's not a joke when a guy is undisciplined off the field, because if you can't even hold your guys to the standard of, hey, you're going to be disciplined on the field and off the field, and you're just being like, all right, you're like the grandpa, the bad grandpa that gives them anything they want and send them on their way kicking and screaming to their mom. Like, how are you going to hold somebody accountable if you ain't even holding them accountable off the field? You're letting them be a jackass off the field, and you're expecting them to be a disciplinary on the field? You can't have it both. You can't do that. You can't do that. And it doesn't lead or breed positive culture, accountability culture. Like, it just doesn't breed any of that. It's a bad example. And it's like I said, we've all said it starts at the top. So if you see your owner and you're like, he's okay with that, then why are you going to be worried about your head coach? Because you're like, well, my head coach, like you said, it cuts his legs out. You're like, I don't care what Mike McCarthy says. Jerry's okay with it. He's the one that writes the checks. Mm-hmm. And that's where we see that as a problem with Jerry Jones. And like you said, I love the guy, love hearing some of his quote stuff, but sometimes you just want him to shut the hell up, let your coaches coach. You own the team. Like James Washington says, sit back and enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Yeah.
Enjoy what you've built, man. Sit back, grab you a whiskey, watch from your box, but just shut the hell up, man, and let your guys do what you hired them to do, and let's go out and try to win another Super Bowl, man. But, it's
his stubbornness will never let it, because if you think about it, Kelly, to your point, you've had Aikman say it, you've had Emmett say it, you've had Irvin say it, you've had Moose say it, you had James Washington say it. I mean, how many people, no one says, Jerry, Jerry, you're doing the right thing. Keep doing what you're doing. Every player from those Super Bowl teams have made it known that you're a problem and what you're doing. Is not conducive to a culture of winning. And he still doesn't listen. And these are guys that won championships for him. Forget the guys in the 70s, all right? Exclude them because they weren't Jerry's guys, right? That was a Tom Landry era, so that didn't, he looks at them differently, so to speak, as like Tony Hill and some of these others say. So take the guys from the 90s. Find me a guy in the 90s that says, Jerry, what you're doing right now is the right thing for the team and it's conducive to a winning culture. Every single one of them said it's not, but he's still doing the same thing. So it's got to lead you to believe it's never going to change. And fans like us, it's like I when I post that video, it's like, oh, I wish I enjoyed those times more. I'm wearing the Super Bowl, their last Super Bowl shirt. I wish I would have appreciated those times because they came easy and it just seemed like it was going to last forever. And when
Yeah.
it stopped, you're like, well, we'll reload and we'll get things going. It hasn't. It's been bad, and the loss this last playoff was humiliating, demoralizing. As a Cowboy fan, it's kind of reaching some to the breaking point. And something's got to change. And if he doesn't change, you wonder the generations of the next Cowboy fans, how that's going to be. Your son, my son, they're Cowboy fans because of us. But at some point, are they going to say, hey, man, hey, Pops, you keep talking about the 90s. I'm long past that. I haven't seen nothing but disappointment. I need to move on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I think that it would be it'd be a sad day to see that for any one of my sons to move on to a different team or something like that. But at some point, man, you got to, you get a lot of these guys, and you hear some of these fans that are the newer age fans on Twitter or social media or just in general, and they're like, yeah, I've never seen the Cowboys win a championship. You got some guys that are like, I've never even seen the Cowboys in an NFC championship game. So you look at that and it becomes one of those things where you've got some of these kids that are, I mean, but we'll take it for example. You got a 28-year-old. If you got a guy that's 28 years old, or even I'll go even further.
Under 40 years,
it's just going to say, if you're 35, 36, 37 years old, you've never seen it. You've never seen that. So, because I mean, I'm borderline, like I'm on the edge. I'm 43 years old. I remember 92, 93, and I remember 95. But like, I was on the edge. I was on the edge of it. You know what I mean? I didn't get to see all the games during the season because I wasn't in Texas at that time. So, there was a lot of the regular season games that I didn't get to see. So there are bits and pieces that I don't remember, but so it's when you think about it, it's sad that we've had such a long drought, man. And you're right. When I think about it now, I'm like, God, I really wish I would have, bumped my chest a little harder, walked a little taller, bragged a little bit more, because now it is, we've got 28 years and we haven't seen it. And we keep seeing all these different teams come in and you win it. And you see these organizations that are constantly in the mix for it, whether, the Chiefs are winning it because they've got this organization and a culture that we want. They have what we want. Right. And you saw it with the Patriots. They developed that dynasty and had that dynasty going, and they had what we want. They had the right pieces and all the things. So we've seen what it takes. We know what we see a winning organization, and we can tell from looking at their organization and looking at our organization. Do we have it? No, we don't have it. Can we get there? Do we have the pieces roster wise? I think we're pretty damn close. I think it's just all the other things that you have to fine tune to get yourselves over the hump is what we're lacking. And can we get there? I don't know. That's TBD. You know what I mean? But
it's all between the ears. Yeah. It's talent is. I mean, they say what you want about Dak, and I know he's going to get a lot of heat, and he's going to get a lot of that. A lot of players, players on other teams, a lot of former players, a lot of have come to his defense, especially in the playoff game.
Yeah,
the defense didn't do him no favors. I mean, he finished second in the MVP, so he's thought of. He's definitely thought of, but he's got to play better in the big games of the playoffs. There's no doubt about it. But you've got to understand what you have. You don't have Patrick Mahomes, right? You don't have that. There's only one.
Right.
You've got to build. You got to give him a running game. That's what most quarterbacks. I mean, it's the old age of football. You still got to be able to run the ball. What was the first thing the Packers said they're going to do again? We're going to run the ball. We know we can run against them, and that's going to set everything else up. And that's what he said. As soon as they saw success in right, set everything else up, and it was game over. Game over for the Packers. So that's something that they got to do. But we're going to flip to the Super Bowl because we got all off season to talk about it. But before we do, a couple PSAs. Make sure we're getting closer to 3,000 subscribers. We're going to do a giveaway. Bob Lilly, Mr. Cowboy, was on our show. He signed a couple Funko Pops, so we're going to do a giveaway. One he signed for me, but we're going to do a giveaway at our 3,000 subscriber. We got a big 5,000 subscriber. That's going to be tickets to the a Cowboys game. Hopefully you guys still want to go. Don't give up on the team just yet. If not, it's still the best weekend you'll have in your life, hanging with Cowboys Nation and hanging with Kelly and I. You can't ask for a better time. So that's still worth it. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe. You share it, let everyone know. We're going to be filling up some interviews. The off season, we'll be getting some interviews of some other players coming in, kind of, figuring out what's going on with what they're up to, talk about some memories with the Cowboys. So we've got a lot of stuff going on. So make sure you guys hit that like, subscribe, share, all that kind of good stuff. Look at Mark. I hadn't seen Mark in a long time.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Yeah, just about to say that. Mark is in the chat, man. He hadn't been in there a while. He says he's got a new job and new hours, so it's been a little bit tough for him to get tuned into the cave.
You don't let work get in the way of the cave. That's rule number one. Rule number one. You got some AirPods. You put it on. I tell people when you go to work, put the cave on. Just let it run all day. It don't matter. Do your work as you go. You listen in the background, but you can catch up on all the great interviews and everything else that we've done. And you're sympathetic to the cause. So we like that too.
That's right. So, Mark, no excuses, man. It's like this Dallas Cowboys team. No excuses. Don't give me that work. Don't give me that work excuse there, Mark.
Yeah.
Real quick before we start on the Super Bowl thing, I was just going to touch on something. I saw a tweet this morning and it came out and it was Schefter and they were talking about the Dak Prescott thing, and it said that we should expect after the Super Bowl and the weeks following the Super Bowl that we should absolutely expect contract talks to heat up with the Cowboys and Dak Prescott. And I'm just readying Cowboys Nation just so you guys know. And I've come to grips with it and come to terms with it that Dak Prescott does give us our best chance to win right now, regardless of what's happened in the playoffs. We understand that he needs to play better, but he's in the next few weeks, he's probably going to be signed and extended, and he will be one of the highest paid, if not the highest paid quarterback in the league. What that's going to allow us to do, it's going to allow us to create a ton of cap room, because we need that cap room. If, and Schefter was talking about, if the Cowboys are truly going all in, they're going to need that cap room, and it starts with Dak Prescott. And Dak Prescott is key one to signing and extending CeeDee Lamb, and then also bringing in some of these key free agents. So something to watch for in the coming weeks is the Dak Prescott contract beginning to heat up, and obviously I think they'll get that done. But, look for him to become the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. So agree with it or not, it's what's going to happen, and it's going to be what's best for this team to win going forward, because you're not going to win without a quarterback. I don't think there's any rookie quarterback or Trey Lance that's going to come in this year and give us a chance to compete for a Super Bowl. I think that's Dak Prescott. And, and we'll see how that looks, but obviously that's going to happen. So,
yeah, it's good. The pressure is going to be on him even more. So it's going to be tough. And I think that if they could sign him, free up a lot of room, and then you're going to sign CeeDee, that frees up a lot of room in the first, couple years. They will be able to sign some guys. That's what I want to see. If they just sign Dak and they sign CeeDee and they don't do nothing, I'm going to be really pissed.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
That's going to be a problem. And I wish they would do this. March 1st, I'm supposed to pay my my annual seat license, and I wish free agency started in February so I could see it before I pay my money. So, but
and I'll tell you this too. One of the things too is that it will be, the Cowboys are strategic in that as far as the March 1st thing. They want you to renew your season ticket before you see what they do. But I will say this as far as Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. What I will be most interested in my opinion on when they do this extension with Dak Prescott is, will there again be a no trade clause? Because that will be for me. That's key for me, right? If they sign Dak to like a 5-year extension and they extend him another 5 years out, and then there's another no trade clause, in my opinion, and I'm not saying we need to look at trading Dak, but I think we need to sit down with Dak and say, hey, look, man, we've had 8 years now with you as the quarterback. We are willing to sign you and make you the highest paid quarterback in the league to show you that we have our faith in you. But you have to do something for us here, and you have to give us at least a way out, to give you a fresh start, to give us a fresh start. If this thing don't work and we continue to fail and we continue to trip over our own feet, and you continue to have, poor performances in the playoffs. Because, I mean, you should be able to have those honest conversations if you're going to pay a guy and make him the highest paid position in his, in that sport. You should be able to have an honest conversation and say, this is what we expect from you, but this is where we stand, right? We should be able to move on from you if we decide to after a year or two or whatever that looks like. So I'm hoping that they don't give him all the cards like they did the last time with the no trade clause, because I think if Dak Prescott, if we have another season or heaven forbid 2 seasons of where we go out and he gets off these slow starts and he's turning the ball over in the playoffs, then I think you look to trade Dak Prescott and kind of say, all right, it's time to move on. Let's get a different piece in here and see if we can get a different result. So that's going to be what I'll be watching for in the contract negotiations with Dak. So
yeah, I think it's 1 year. I think obviously they're going to sign him. We got to live with it. But if this year does not turn out to be what a lot of Cowboy fans hope and need, I think it's going to be tough times in Dallas. I mean, it's already going to be a lot of pressure when they sign him. There's going to be a lot of pressure and a lot of heat from the media, from the fans, from everything. It's going to be. This is going to check this team's mental toughness, because I don't care what they play the Ravens, right? They play. I think they play the 49ers. Pretty sure they play the 49ers. They're going to play Detroit, right? They got the first place schedule, so they're playing these teams. They're going to play the Bucks. I guess I don't really count them as a division winner, but anyway, they're playing these teams. Their mental toughness is because even if they beat them, the playoffs, right? They beat Detroit. Well, we'll see what happens in the playoffs. They beat the Ravens. We'll see what happens. You're going to, if they finally beat the 49ers, let's say, there's always going to be that lingering question. All right, let's wait till the playoffs. I've already prepared. I'm mentally getting my mind right when I do these hype videos. I know what's going to be said. I got to kind of do like the Eminem. I'm going to have to tell them everything. You know what I'm saying? That way they can't throw it back at me. We're going to have to go ahead and do that. So that's the Cowboy fans almost have to acknowledge that way, because it's already getting thrown at them. So
absolutely, and that's what we gotta understand, and we gotta own it. But I think we're ready for it. So
yeah, we'll get it going. But hey, let's talk. I mean, one day we're gonna have this, and I get so jealous when I see all the Super Bowl stuff and Super Bowl week, and you see all this stuff. And I saw Jay Tuck out there just living the lifestyle.
Yes, sir.
One day I would do it. Now, I'd only do it, and I know he does some reporting and he does some stuff too for media. I think I'd only go if the Cowboys, and I don't think I'd go to the game, but I'd want to experience, if the Cowboys get to the Super Bowl, I'd want to experience all that, because it is second to none. But Super Bowl time, Chiefs, Niners, I think it's going to be a good game. Yeah. Give me your thoughts. We want to hear it in the chat. What are you guys thinking of this game? If Mahomes wins this Super Bowl, where does he rank? I mean, where do you put him? Do you get him close to Brady, or what are you thinking with the Super Bowl coming up? It's going to be a fun one.
Well, he's already, Mahomes is already. If he wins this Super Bowl, he'll be tied with Brady in terms of where they were at this similar point in their career. He'll be tied with the amount of same Super Bowls at 3. So I think, if you look at every other metric, though, he's already passed him. He's at this point in their career, he's passed him in yardage, he's passed him in touchdowns, he's passed him in, pretty much everything else. He just needs that Super Bowl. So I think this continues Patrick Mahomes' trajectory towards the top. I already think he's the best quarterback in the league by far. But as far as like GOAT status, you know what I mean? That's what everybody wants to talk about. Yeah, we want to compare GOATs, right? I think Patrick Mahomes needs to win this Super Bowl to continue to keep that up, because if not, then you're talking about, he's lost now. It would be his 3rd Super Bowl that he'll have lost, because I know he lost to Brady already once.
Lost to Brady
with the Bucks, and then they lost. Didn't they lose to the? Who else did they lose? Have they lost 2 Super Bowls or 3?
I don't think he's lost
2.
3.
I think he's only lost 1 Super Bowl, right?
Lost 1. I think he only lost to Brady, right?
Just lost 1 Super Bowl.
Help us out.
I think he's just lost 1. Either way, I think he needs this to keep going on with Brady. But in my opinion, I think he's on the trajectory to be the greatest of all times, and I don't think he has to win 7 Super Bowl titles to do that. Brady's got the 7 Super Bowl titles, but I don't think Mahomes needs 7 to do it. Just kind of like how, there's always the LeBron and MJ thing. And like, well, LeBron doesn't have to catch MJ to get, there's those people that out there that argue that. I would argue the same thing for Mahomes. And I'm not saying I think LeBron's greater than Jordan. So
Yeah,
let's not twist that up. But I think that Mahomes can end up as the greatest quarterback to have ever played the game when it's all said and done. And I don't think he needs to win 7 to do it. But I think that Mahomes is probably going to walk away from the game with 4 or 5. I think he's well on his way towards that, and I think this will be a great game. I really do, but I think the Chiefs win this one. I think Mahomes gets his 3rd Super Bowl, and I think he'll more than likely be the Super Bowl MVP again too. So
yeah, quarterbacks always get that award now. We know that, but it was So he beat the 49ers, he beat the Eagles, lost to the Bucks, and so this would be 3 and 4 year or three wins, 1 loss. So that would be great. Am I missing one in there? Help me.
No, I think you're right. Okay. And that will have established them as a dynasty, though, because they'll have gone back to back. So now they'll officially have a dynasty going. Because obviously to have a dynasty, you have to have that back to back.
Yes,
you got to go back to back in order to have a dynasty. And the Chiefs have yet to have a back to back. But if they win this year, that will give them the back to back, which officially will make them a dynasty of the 2000 and 10s era, whatever, 2020s, whatever the hell you want to call it. They'll have a dynasty going, and the Chiefs have never had a dynasty. So, I'm a Texas Tech guy, man. So obviously, I'm happy for my guy Mahomes. I
haven't seen one person pick the Niners. Do you think a lot of that has to do with the Cowboys Niners? Like, I'll be honest with you, I don't want to see them win. I just don't. I don't want to see them win. So maybe I'm not being as objective. Is there anyone in the chat that thinks that the Niners are going to win? Or Kelly, I know you're Texas Tech and that's Mahomes, so that's your guy. But if it was are you rooting against the 49ers because you don't want to see them win? Or are you being realistic and saying, I'm looking at these 2 teams and that's what I'm picking?
Well, I will give you for me, it's a double-edged sword. I'm rooting against the Niners out of pure spite. I hate them. But when I look at it realistically, though, I like the Chiefs, not necessarily so much because of Mahomes, but because of their defense.
Yeah.
They got the number 2 defense in the league, and I saw what they did on the road to Josh Allen, on the road with Lamar Jackson. They held those offenses in check. And I think that if you can't, I'm not one of those people that likes to look at, common opponents and say, well, the Ravens beat the dog crap out of the 49ers, and then the Chiefs beat the Ravens. So that means the Chiefs will beat the Niners. I don't like to make those assumptions.
Yeah. But
when you look at the common opponents and you look at what the Ravens offense was able to do to the 49ers defense, and the Ravens were the more physical team and defensively they flustered them. I think that the Chiefs can do something similar to that. Now, I don't think that they'll have the same result. I don't think that they'll blow them out of the water. I think this is going to be a close game. But I do think that the Chiefs have the better rounded team, because I think that there's question marks amongst that 49ers secondary. And I think if you're looking at who can exploit a secondary, well, Patrick, look no further than the best quarterback in the league. Yeah. I think he'll have a big day. I look towards, not just, Travis Kelce, I think is going to make some big plays, but Rashee Rice is a guy that you should look to make some big plays in this game, because he's a rookie wide receiver who has really started to develop that chemistry with Patrick Mahomes. You've seen it late in the season, and it's continued into the postseason. So I'm looking at him to have a big impact in this game as well. I just think that the Chiefs are the more rounded team, and I think they'll get this win.
Yeah, it's crazy to me because I would have bet. Halfway through the year, I probably would have bet 2 weeks' pay that there was no way in hell the Chiefs were getting to the Super Bowl, and here they are.
Oh, I would, yeah.
And they just did not look good. They lost. They lost to the Broncos. They lost some weird games, and they just did not look good. And if you really look at their roster, especially offensively, they have nothing. And then Pacheco does what he does. Like, he just kind of heats up in the play, and here he comes. And then Kelce is starting to get going again. And then, you find, like you said, the receivers just kind of start stepping up. But there's one common denominator, and it's Patrick Mahomes. And that's why I just try and tell people. And I argue with Brady. I got a buddy I work with. I call him a bandwagon Brady a Patriots fan because he was a fan when they started winning because he was a kid, so that's all he knows. And I said, "Your dark days are coming, my friend. So just get ready." And he don't like to hear that.
That's right.
But we get in arguments over Mahomes and Brady because he just does not want to even put Mahomes in the same sentence as Brady. And to your point, they win today. He's in the same sentence. I'd put him in the same sentence now. I think he's that good, and it's just him and everyone else in the NFL. It's him and the quarterback. You can't. That's why I say you could pay Dak, and you can't look at the money these guys make. Take that out of it because that's just business, and that's just the way the NFL is set up. It's always going to be the next man. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So I know people get all pissy about, Dak is going to get made. Someone's going to get it. I mean, Daniel Jones, you saw what he got. You saw what some of these guys, they're going to get paid. That's just the way it is. But Mahomes is the one guy that, I mean, he deserves every cent and he justifies it no matter what. And what he's been able to do with less. I mean, really the receivers that he's had and this and that, it's amazing. This is probably, I mean, arguably win today, his best season ever. And he didn't even win the MVP.
Yeah. No, and the thing, two things with that. One, I will say this: when Dak Prescott gets extended and he's the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, give it 3 years and he'll be probably top 6 or 7. They're going to continue guys are going to continue to come up. You got CJ Stroud coming up that's going to probably break the bank. You've got guys that are going to come after Dak that will continue to be the highest paid, and guys will be like that even with lesser playoff resumes. There will be guys that, you saw Kirk Cousins for many years. It happened with him. So, just get over that. It's not our money. It's Jerry's money. So forget about it. But what I'll say about the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, what I really love about their journey and their story, which gives me the confidence of them, is because they have battled through that adversity. They had those times in the season where they're struggling to find their offensive identity. They can't really run the ball very well. Their wide receivers are dropping passes and everybody's like, damn, they didn't give Patrick Mahomes any help. They went out and they didn't sign anybody in free agency. They brought in nobody to help Patrick Mahomes. Well, then, they kind of battle through this adversity. They get through that rough spot, and everybody is counting the Chiefs out, including myself. I would have thought the same thing as you. I remember watching the game that they lost to Green Bay, which obviously Green Bay turned out to be a pretty solid team. But at that time, Green Bay wasn't. They had a losing record, and they're playing the Chiefs, and they're taking it to the Chiefs, and the Chiefs can't do nothing in that game. And I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, this is not a year for the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl or even even advance far in the playoffs. And I'm sitting here thinking it's probably going to be the Bills, or I'm starting to think whom in the AFC might get over the hump. Then here come the Chiefs. You know what I mean? He starts getting in a connection with Kelsey starts playing better. Rashee Rice, Isaiah Pacheco starts running the ball, and now they're scoring points, and now that defense is able to do what they do, and they hold people to 7. I think that defense holds people under 20 points.
Yeah.
And almost every game I've looked over their schedule. They didn't allow, I think, maybe 1 or 2 teams to score over 20 the entire season. That's impressive as hell, man. So I look at that defense as being a big key in this Super Bowl. But yeah, you're right. Patrick Mahomes, he's the difference maker, and he's the common denominator. And I think he's the reason they'll win this Super Bowl. And that's
and underdog. This will be the 3rd game in a row they're underdogs, which is exactly amazing.
Crazy.
Patrick Mahomes has been an underdog in the playoffs in 3 straight games. It's crazy because I was when I was out in Oregon. We're talking about the Super Bowl and this and that, and I always ask, hey, who you rooting for? Well, I'm rooting for the other. I always like to root for the underdog, so I'm hoping San Francisco wins. I said, well, whoa. I said, Kansas City's the underdog. I mean, technically, if we're going to say who the underdog is, Kansas City's the underdog. No, there's no way. They got Mahomes, but they are slight underdog, but they are, and it's going to be good. Now, I placed a bet. I listen to Uncle Cheech. Uncle Cheech knows what he's talking about. He was very bullish on Kansas City. So he bet him straight up to get the extra money. I went ahead and took the 1.5. Probably should have just done straight up, but I get the 1.5, and I put some money on Kansas City. So we'll see what happens. It's gonna be a fun Super Bowl. I definitely don't want the 49ers to win that's worse. That would put the cherry on top of the worst season as a Cowboy fan if San Francisco wins the Super Bowl, because the only thing I can always shut them up with is 1994. They can't. They have no answer for that. They'll say, we went to some Super Bowls. So I said, well, you just keep losing them. So I'd rather just not go if I'm going to lose in every one. So hopefully that continues. Otherwise, it's good. It's going to make this offseason even worse.
I agree, man. It's the only thing that can give me that, tonight is going to cause me to lay my head down on my pillow and sleep a little bit easier is knowing that the 49ers still don't have 6. They're still stuck at 5, and they still haven't won one since before our last one. So that's what'll help me sleep a little bit easier at night and make things a little bit easier for Cowboys fans like myself and you heading into the offseason is knowing that San Francisco still didn't get it done. And, and eventually you start to look at things and say, all right, things will eventually get more difficult for San Francisco because, right now they're in that window where they can continue to be aggressive and go all in because they're not having to pay their quarterback a lot of money. And Brock Purdy's still on that rookie contract, and he's going to be on that rookie contract for, I think, 2 more years.
I think I think something's going to happen with his agent. I don't think he's going to go in the next year on this rookie deal. I'll be shocked.
Well, and maybe it will. Hopefully for our sake it will. But the thing with the Niners is if Purdy plays if he plays this next year and he's not extended and they don't give him a contract extension, the Niners are going to be a team that's going to be able to still spend a lot of money on big time playmakers to put around Brock Purdy to continue this run towards trying to get over the hump and win another Super Bowl. So that they will absolutely be a contender next year. Sometimes you look at a team and you think, all right, well, if they don't do it this year, their window is beginning to close. I think right now the 49ers window is pretty wide open right now because they've got young pieces, key pieces all over that team, offensively, defensively, that they've got locked up long-term, that they've got guys that are still highly productive, whether it be Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, on the offensive side, Ayuk, like all of those kind of guys like that. They've got these guys locked up. So they're not going anywhere. But let's just hope today the one place they go is home with an L.
Yeah.
So
no, it would definitely. So, hey, we've been kicking it this was I just texted Kelly last night saying, man, let's just jump on, do a little live for a little pregame Sunday, have some fun. So appreciate everyone who's tuned in, hung out with us for the hour, 20 minutes that we've been on. We're going to be back at it. Going to be live Monday, do a little post game on the Super Bowl. Then Kelly and I will be back Thursday, and we'll have some spots in between. I think we're doing a collaboration on Thursday. I think we're doing a whole group Thursday.
Boys in the zone.
Boys in the Zone. So that'll be we'll have it on both channels. So you'll be able to, we'll have it advertised on here as well. So you guys can definitely check it out and join us. We'll have a great group. So the off season will officially be starting by next week for us. Season will be over. So we appreciate it. Enjoy the Super Bowl Sunday. I mean, I know it sucks, but it's still it's a great day. I don't know why they don't do it on Saturday so we can enjoy the nice day off. We all got to get to work the next day, but hopefully it'll be good. And Kelly, another great show. Appreciate you hanging, and give you the final word of anything you want to say, since this is your Mahomes, so this is your guy. So I'll give you the final word for the day.
Well, I'm just going to say that, we're going to enjoy the Super Bowl. I hope everybody enjoys the foods. I love the foods, the drinks, the commercials. And just in case anybody was wondering and you were waiting and bated anticipation like I was, Taylor Swift's jet did make it overseas from Japan. She is going to make it to the Super Bowl. She will be on the Super Bowl. So if you are triggered by Taylor Swift and you don't like seeing her, you might want to turn your TV off today for Super Bowl, because they're going to show her, and they're going to show her a few times. But make a game out of it. Take a shot. I take a shot every time I see Taylor Swift on the TV. So hopefully tonight I'm taking several shots. I've got the Chiefs, though, winning this game. I've got them winning it 27-21. The final score, Super Bowl winners go to the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is going to walk away with another Super Bowl MVP and add his 3rd Super Bowl to the Chiefs trophy case there. So I hope everybody enjoys the Super Bowl and the food and the commercials, and understand that today is the last game for football that we get to see until August. So just remember that and appreciate it, and understand that unfortunately we're going to be without football for a while, but that doesn't mean you won't be without content, because me and Mike will keep bringing it.
But definitely, you guys have a great Sunday. Enjoy it. I got the Chiefs too, and I put my money where my mouth is, so we'll see what happens. Take care.
Give me somebody that's hungry. Give me somebody that's hungry.